Pinewood Manor stood majestically on the outskirts of a quaint New England town, its grand facade a testament to a bygone era of opulence. Every Christmas, the manor was transformed into a festive spectacle, drawing visitors from miles around to experience its enchanting decorations and warm hospitality. However, beneath the manor's cheerful exterior lay a chilling secret that only surfaced during the silent nights of Christmas. The Thompson family had always cherished their annual Christmas reunion at Pinewood Manor. This year was particularly special as Grandma Eleanor, the matriarch, had passed down the tradition for over 4 decades. The family, comprising siblings Sarah, Michael, Emily, and their spouses and children, arrived on a snowy December evening, their hearts filled with excitement and nostalgia. As they approached the manor, the twinkling lights and the scent of pine welcomed them. The grand entrance was adorned with wreaths, garlands, and an enormous Christmas tree that stood proudly in the foyer. Laughter and the sound of holiday music filled the air, creating an atmosphere of warmth and joy. After dinner, the family gathered in the living room to exchange gifts and share stories. Grandma Eleanor regaled them with tales of Christmases past, her eyes twinkling with memories. As the night grew late, Sarah suggested exploring the manor to discover hidden treasures and forgotten rooms. Intrigued, Michael, Emily, and their children agreed. The family made their way upstairs, where they stumbled upon a door they had never noticed before, a narrow passage leading to the old attic. The door creaked ominously as Sarah pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit space filled with antique furniture, dusty trunks, and cobweb-covered ornaments. As they ventured deeper into the attic, the temperature seemed to drop, and an eerie silence enveloped the room. Emily noticed an old mirror leaning against the far wall, its surface covered in a thick layer of dust. She wiped it clean, revealing a beautiful, ornate frame adorned with intricate carvings. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness as the manor's power flickered and went out. The only light came from the flickering flames of the fireplace, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. A sense of unease settled over the family as they heard faint whispers echoing through the attic. Michael, always the skeptic, dismissed it as the wind, but Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The whispers grew louder, forming indistinct words that sent shivers through their bodies. The children clung to their parents, their eyes wide with fear. Out of the corner of her eye, Emily saw a fleeting shadow move across the mirror. She gasped, and the others turned to look, but there was nothing there. The whispers intensified, now clearly chanting, "Leave! Now!" Panic set in as the family attempted to retrace their steps, but the attic seemed to stretch endlessly, the layout changing in impossible ways. Doors led to nowhere, and staircases descended into darkness. The temperature continued to drop, their breaths visible in the frigid air. Suddenly, a spectral figure materialized before them, a woman dressed in Victorian-era attire, her eyes hollow and sorrowful. She reached out a translucent hand, her voice echoing through the room. "You shouldn't be here. This is not a place of joy." Terrified, Sarah mustered the courage to speak. "Who are you? Why are you haunting us?" The apparition's expression softened, and she began to recount her tragic story. Eleanor Pinewood, the original mistress of the manor, had perished in a fire on Christmas Eve over a century ago. The fire had claimed her life and left the manor abandoned for years until it was restored to its former glory. Her spirit remained bound to the manor, unable to find peace, especially during the festive season when memories of her lost family overwhelmed her. She had been the driving force behind the manor's annual Christmas celebrations, hoping that joy would help her heal. Moved by Eleanor's plight, the Thompson family vowed to help. They promised to honor her memory by ensuring that Pinewood Manor remained a place of happiness and togetherness every Christmas. The apparition seemed to accept their promise, her form gradually fading as a warm, comforting light filled the attic. The power returned, and the manor's lights shone brightly once more. The family descended from the attic, their hearts lighter and their bonds strengthened by the night's ordeal. They knew that Pinewood Manor would continue to be a beacon of love and unity, bridging the gap between the living and the departed. Years later, the Thompsons still celebrate Christmas at Pinewood Manor, always remembering the silent night when they encountered Eleanor Pinewood. The manor remains a place where the past and present coexist, a sanctuary where the spirit of Christmas truly lives on. In the heart of Vermont, the small town of Evergreen Hollow was renowned for its picturesque landscapes and tight-knit community. Every Christmas, the town transformed into a winter wonderland, complete with twinkling lights, festive decorations, and the harmonious melodies of carolers filling the crisp night air. However, one particularly cold Christmas Eve would forever change the town's perception of its beloved tradition. Evergreen Hollow had a long-standing tradition of welcoming Christmas with the Midnight Carolers, a group of local residents who dressed in Victorian attire and performed hauntingly beautiful carols at the stroke of midnight. The tradition was said to honor the town's founder, Jonathan Evergreen, who was a passionate musician and had mysteriously disappeared one snowy Christmas Eve a century ago. Residents believed that Jonathan's spirit guided the carolers each year, ensuring that the town remained safe and prosperous. While most embraced the tradition with joy, some whispered about the eerie occurrences that surrounded the Midnight Carolers, especially on the anniversary of Jonathan's disappearance. This Christmas, the Hollow family, Anna, David, and their teenage daughter Lily, moved to Evergreen Hollow seeking a fresh start after the loss of Anna's father. Eager to immerse themselves in the community, they quickly became acquainted with their neighbors and the town's cherished traditions. As Christmas approached, Lily grew particularly fascinated by the Midnight Carolers. She admired their commitment and the enchanting music they produced. However, Anna sensed a lingering unease in the air, especially as the anniversary of Jonathan Evergreen's disappearance neared. On Christmas Eve, the town gathered in the central square, bundled in warm coats and scarves. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. As the clock struck midnight, the Midnight Carolers emerged from the shadows, their Victorian costumes immaculate under the glow of lanterns. Their leader, a tall man named Mr. Hawthorne, began conducting the choir. The carols they sang were both beautiful and haunting, echoing through the silent night. The townsfolk listened in awe, swaying gently to the melodies. Lily watched from the crowd, captivated by the performance. Anna, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. As the final notes of the carol lingered in the air, a sudden gust of wind extinguished the lanterns, plunging the square into darkness. Panic erupted as residents scrambled to find their way. In the chaos, Lily realized that the Midnight Carolers had vanished without a trace. Mr. Hawthorne was nowhere to be seen, and the harmonious melodies had ceased abruptly. Anna grabbed Lily's hand, urging her to stay close. They navigated through the crowd, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The townspeople were whispering frantically about the sudden disappearance of the carolers, with some fearing it was a reenactment of Jonathan Evergreen's fate. Determined to uncover the mystery, Anna and Lily began to investigate. They visited the town library, poring over old records and newspaper clippings about Jonathan Evergreen and the origins of the Midnight Carolers. They discovered that Jonathan had been a gifted composer whose disappearance coincided with the first Midnight Carolers performance. According to local lore, Jonathan had intended to compose a final, perfect carol that would ensure the town's eternal prosperity. However, the night before its completion, he vanished without a trace, leaving his composition unfinished. Some believed that his spirit was bound to the carolers, guiding them each year to perform the incomplete carol in hopes of bringing him back. As Christmas approached once more, Anna and Lily became more involved in the preparations for the Midnight Carolers' performance. They felt an inexplicable connection to the tradition, as if something unseen was guiding their actions. On the following Christmas Eve, the town assembled once again in the central square. The atmosphere was tense, with the memory of the previous year's disappearance still fresh. As midnight approached, Anna noticed a familiar figure among the crowd, Mr. Hawthorne. This time, as the clock struck 12, the Midnight Carolers began their performance. The carols were eerily similar to those from the previous year, but there was an unfinished melody that lingered at the end. Anna realized that this was Jonathan Evergreen's composition, now being completed. As the choir reached the unfinished melody, a cold breeze swept through the square. The lanterns flickered, casting long shadows that danced ominously. Lily felt a chill run down her spine as she watched Mr. Hawthorne approach the center of the square. He began to sing the final note of the composition, his voice resonating with a haunting beauty. As he sang, the air seemed to shimmer, and a spectral figure emerged beside him. It was Jonathan Evergreen himself. The townsfolk gasped in awe and fear as Jonathan's spirit took form. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice echoing through the night. My song is complete, and my soul can finally find peace. With those words, the spectral figure began to fade, dissolving into the night sky. The carolers stopped singing, and the town was enveloped in a serene silence. The lanterns reignited, and the central square was bathed in warm light once more. In the aftermath of the performance, the town of Evergreen Hollow felt a profound sense of closure. The midnight carolers resumed their annual tradition, now with a renewed sense of purpose and gratitude. Anna and Lily became integral members of the choir, ensuring that Jonathan Evergreen's legacy lived on. The Hollow family found solace in the town's embrace, their bond strengthened by the shared experience. Lily often reflected on that magical Christmas night, grateful for the mysteries that had brought her family closer and for the spirit of Evergreen Hollow that had welcomed them with open arms. Years later, the story of the Midnight Carolers and Jonathan Evergreen's final composition became a cherished tale in Evergreen Hollow. Each Christmas Eve, as the carolers sang under the starlit sky, the townsfolk remembered the night when music bridged the gap between the living and the departed, ensuring that the spirit of Christmas remained eternal. Nestled in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, the Mistletoe Inn was a charming bed and breakfast known for its cozy ambiance and festive Christmas decorations. Every winter, families flocked to the inn to celebrate the holiday season, enjoying warm meals, comfortable accommodations, and the enchanting spirit of Christmas. However, beneath its welcoming exterior, the inn held a dark history that resurfaced each Christmas night, bringing with it tales of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena. The Parker family, Tom, Laura, and their two children, Emma and Jack, decided to spend their first Christmas away from the bustle of city life. Seeking tranquility and a break from their hectic schedules, they booked a stay at the Mistletoe Inn, enticed by its picturesque setting and glowing reviews. Excited for a memorable holiday, they arrived on a snowy December afternoon, greeted by the inn's owner, Mrs. Winifred Hartley. Mrs. Hartley was a warm and gracious woman in her late 60s with a penchant for storytelling. She welcomed the Parkers with a hearty handshake and a plate of freshly baked gingerbread cookies. "Welcome to the Mistletoe Inn," she said with a smile. "We have many traditions here, and I hope you'll enjoy your stay." The inn was beautifully decorated, with garlands adorning the staircases, twinkling lights illuminating the hallways, and a grand Christmas tree standing tall in the main lounge. The Parkers settled into their room, which featured a roaring fireplace, comfortable furnishings, and large windows offering stunning views of the snow-covered landscape. That evening, Mrs. Hartley hosted a festive dinner in the dining hall. The family enjoyed a delicious meal of roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, and cranberry sauce, followed by dessert and mulled wine. After dinner, Mrs. Hartley gathered the guests around the fireplace to share stories of the inn's history. As the fire crackled, Mrs. Hartley began recounting the story of Eliza Montgomery, the inn's original owner. Eliza was a kind-hearted woman who had built the inn from the ground up in the late 1800s. She was beloved by all who knew her for her generosity and festive spirit. Every Christmas, Eliza hosted grand celebrations, bringing together travelers and locals alike to celebrate the season. However, one Christmas Eve over a century ago, tragedy struck. A fierce storm rolled in, trapping guests inside the inn. Amidst the chaos, Eliza went missing, and despite a frantic search, her body was never found. Some believe that her spirit remained at the inn, ensuring that the Christmas traditions she cherished were upheld each year. During their first night at the inn, the Parkers began to notice subtle, unexplained occurrences. Soft footsteps echoed through the hallways long after they had fallen asleep. Sometimes they heard faint laughter and the distant sound of carols, despite the inn being empty. Emma, an imaginative 8-year-old, was the first to speak up. "Mom, I think someone is playing with my ornaments," she whispered one night, pointing to her decorated Christmas tree. The ornaments had been moved and rearranged overnight, forming intricate patterns that seemed almost intentional. Jack, a curious 10-year-old, insisted he saw a shadowy figure standing by the fireplace, dressed in Victorian attire similar to the illustrations of Eliza Montgomery he had seen in old photographs displayed around the inn. "It was like she was watching us," he said, eyes wide with fear. On Christmas Eve, as the family participated in the inn's traditional festivities, The atmosphere was particularly festive. Mrs. Hartley led everyone in decorating the grand Christmas tree, singing carols, and sharing holiday treats. As midnight approached, she invited the guests to gather in the lounge for a special storytelling session. After the festivities, the Parkers retired to their room, exhausted but happy. Around midnight, Laura was awakened by the sound of soft singing emanating from the hallway. Thinking it was one of the other guests, she got up to investigate. As she stepped into the corridor, the singing ceased abruptly, replaced by an oppressive silence. Suddenly, a cold draft swept through the hallway, extinguishing the candlelight. In the darkness, Laura felt a presence nearby. A soft whisper filled the air. "Stay. Celebrate ... Before she could react, the lights flickered back on, revealing nothing out of the ordinary. Shaken, Laura returned to her room, where she found Emma and Jack huddled together, eyes wide with fear. "Mom, we saw her," Jack stammered. "She was right by the fireplace." Determined to understand the strange events, Laura approached Mrs. Hartley the next morning. The inn's owner listened attentively before revealing more about Eliza's disappearance. "Some say Eliza never left," she confessed, "that her spirit remains to ensure the inn remains a place of joy and togetherness, just as she always wanted." Intrigued and concerned, Tom decided to delve deeper into the inn's history. He visited the local library, where he discovered old newspaper articles and diaries detailing Eliza's life and the tragic storm that led to her disappearance. According to the accounts, Eliza was preparing for the inn's grandest Christmas celebration when the storm hit, leaving her trapped and unable to escape. Among the diaries, Tom found a reference to an unfinished Christmas song Eliza had been composing, a melody meant to embody the spirit of Christmas and bring happiness to all who heard it. The song was never completed, as Eliza vanished before she could finish her work. Realizing that the unfinished song might hold the key to appeasing Eliza's spirit, Tom shared his findings with Laura and Mrs. Hartley. Together, they decided to complete the song, hoping it would help Eliza find peace and end the hauntings. On Christmas Day, the Parkers and Mrs. Hartley gathered in the lounge to work on completing Eliza's song. They played the old piano that Eliza had used, and Tom, a musician by training, began to piece together the fragmented notes from the diaries. As they worked, the atmosphere grew tense with anticipation. The family could feel Eliza's presence, watching and perhaps guiding them. Finally, after hours of collaboration, the song was complete, a beautiful, uplifting melody that captured the essence of Christmas joy. That evening, the inn hosted a special Christmas concert, inviting all guests to join in singing Eliza's completed song. Mrs. Hartley took the lead, her voice filled with emotion as she began to sing. The Parkers joined in, their voices harmonizing beautifully. As the final notes echoed through the lounge, a warm, radiant light enveloped the room. The air felt lighter, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Emma and Jack noticed a gentle presence near the fireplace, where the shadowy figure of Eliza had once stood. This time, however, Eliza's spirit appeared serene, a soft smile gracing her translucent features. "Thank you," her voice whispered, more audible and comforting than before. "Now I can rest." With that, Eliza's apparition faded into the light, leaving behind a sense of peace and fulfillment. The haunting had ended, and the Mistletoe Inn was free from its restless spirit. The following morning, the Parkers awoke to a bright, sunlit Christmas morning. The inn felt transformed, no longer overshadowed by fear, but filled with a renewed sense of warmth and joy. Guests exchanged smiles and shared stories of the miraculous concert the night before. Mrs. Hartley expressed her gratitude to the Parkers for their dedication in completing Eliza's song. "You have not only helped Eliza find peace, but have also restored the true spirit of Christmas to the Mistletoe Inn," she said warmly. The Parker family spent the rest of their stay enjoying the inn's hospitality, participating in joyful activities, and forging lasting memories. As they prepared to leave, Emma hugged Mrs. Hartley tightly. "Thank you for helping Eliza," she said softly. Mrs. Hartley smiled. "Christmas is a time for love, forgiveness, and new beginnings. I'm glad you could be a part of it." Years later, the story of the ghost of the Mistletoe Inn became a cherished legend in the Appalachian region. The inn continued to welcome guests from near and far, each visiting to experience its unique charm and the heartfelt Christmas traditions that had been preserved through the Parkers' efforts. Eliza Montgomery's spirit remained at peace, her legacy living on in the joyous celebrations and the harmonious melodies that filled the inn each holiday season. The Mistletoe Inn stood as a testament to the enduring power of love, community, and the true spirit of Christmas. Deep in the heart of the Rocky Mountains lies the secluded village of Silver Pine, a place where winter blankets the landscape in pristine snow each Christmas season. The village is renowned for its charming traditions, including the annual Christmas Eve sleigh ride through the enchanted forest. However, beneath the idyllic facade of Silver Pine lies a forgotten tale of tragedy and restless spirits that resurfaces every Christmas night, entwining with the village's beloved traditions. The Whitaker family, James, Rebecca, and their teenage son, Ethan, decided to spend their first Christmas in Silver Pine, seeking solace and a fresh start after the recent loss of James's brother, who had tragically disappeared during a Christmas sleigh ride years ago. Intrigued by the village's reputation for serene beauty and festive celebrations, they arrived on a snowy December afternoon, greeted warmly by the villagers. As they settled into their cozy cabin adorned with twinkling lights and festive decorations, James couldn't help but feel a lingering unease. The village, though picturesque, seemed to hold secrets that the family was yet to uncover. On their first evening, the Whitakers attended the village's Christmas Eve celebration in the town square. The event was a vibrant display of holiday cheer, featuring a grand Christmas tree, live music, and the much-anticipated sleigh ride through the enchanted forest. As they mingled with the villagers, an elderly woman named Margaret approached them. With a gentle smile and a twinkle in her eye, she shared the village's most cherished legend. Every Christmas Eve, the spirits of those who lost their lives in the forest join us for the sleigh ride. It's a way to honor their memories and keep their spirits alive. James listened intently, his thoughts drifting to his brother's disappearance. Rebecca, sensing his unease, squeezed his hand reassuringly. Ethan, ever curious, asked, "Has anyone ever seen the spirits?" Margaret's expression grew somber. "Some say they appear as shadows in the trees or hear the distant jingling of sleigh bells. Others claim to see the ghostly figure of a young man searching for his lost sleigh." Determined to embrace the village's traditions, the Whitakers decided to join the sleigh ride the following evening. They met with Mr. Thompson, the village's experienced sleigh driver, who assured them of a safe and memorable journey. As night fell, the village square transformed into a magical winter wonderland. The air was filled with the scent of pine and mulled wine, and the sound of carols echoed through the crisp night. The Whitakers, along with other families, gathered around the decorated sleighs, their hearts filled with anticipation. James couldn't shake the feeling that his brother's spirit was watching over him, guiding him to uncover the truth behind his disappearance. Under a canopy of shimmering stars, the sleighs began their journey into the enchanted forest. The path was illuminated by lanterns, casting a warm glow on the snow-covered trees. The villagers sang carols, their voices blending harmoniously with the night sounds. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the atmosphere grew quieter, the sounds of the village fading into the distance. Ethan, seated beside him, whispered, "This place is beautiful, but it feels a bit eerie." James nodded, his eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of his brother. Rebecca comforted him, sensing his unease. Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through the trees, and the sleighs came to an abrupt halt. Mr. Thompson's voice trembled as he announced, "Stay calm, everyone. We'll be here for a moment." In the stillness of the night, a faint jingling of sleigh bells echoed through the forest. The Whitakers looked around, their hearts pounding. Out of the darkness, a spectral figure emerged, a man in Victorian-era attire, standing beside a dilapidated sleigh. James's breath caught in his throat. The apparition bore a striking resemblance to his late brother Thomas, down to the same unruly hair and earnest eyes. "Thomas?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. The ghostly figure raised a hand, pointing towards the deeper parts of the forest. "Find the forgotten sleigh." It spoke, the words carried by a haunting echo. "Only then can peace be restored." Mr. Thompson, sensing the gravity of the situation, decided to disembark the sleighs and assist the Whitakers in locating the forgotten sleigh. Armed with lanterns, they ventured into the dense forest, guided by the apparition's direction. The snow crunched beneath their boots as they navigated through the thick trees. The air grew colder, and an oppressive silence enveloped them. Ethan clung to his parents, his youthful bravery wavering in the face of the unknown. After what felt like hours, they stumbled upon an old clearing. In the center stood a forgotten sleigh, covered in snow and ivy, its once vibrant red paint now faded and chipped. Nearby lay scattered remnants of old harnesses and tattered blankets. James approached the sleigh cautiously, memories of his brother flooding his mind. He reached out, touching the cold metal. "Thomas, is this your sleigh?" As James touched the sleigh, the forest seemed to come alive with memories. Visions of that fateful Christmas Eve played out before them. Thomas leading the sleigh through the same enchanted forest, laughter echoing, and the joyous spirit of the season. But the joyous scene quickly turned to chaos as a sudden blizzard descended upon them. The sleigh was lost in the raging storm, and Thomas was never seen again. The memory faded, leaving only the sorrow and unresolved grief that had bound his spirit to Silverpine. Rebecca placed a comforting hand on James's shoulder. "Maybe we can help him find peace." Determined to honor Thomas's memory, the Whitakers and Mr. Thompson decided to reassemble the forgotten sleigh. Using the remnants they found, they worked together to restore it, hoping to guide Thomas's spirit towards rest. Ethan, inspired by the unfolding events, took the lead in gathering materials, his youthful enthusiasm rekindling the warmth that the family had been missing. Rebecca and James coordinated their efforts, their bond strengthening through the shared mission. As dawn approached, the sleigh began to take shape once more, its presence in the clearing symbolizing hope and closure. With the sleigh restored, Mr. Thompson suggested one final ride to honor Thomas and complete the circle of tradition. The Whitakers agreed, feeling a sense of purpose that had eluded them since their arrival. Under the first light of Christmas morning, the group prepared the sleigh for the journey. As they set off, the forest seemed less ominous, the air filled with a sense of anticipation and reverence. As they rode through the familiar path, the atmosphere shifted. The oppressive silence lifted, replaced by the gentle sounds of nature awakening. The sight of the sun reflecting off the snow created a breathtaking panorama. Suddenly, the spectral figure of Thomas appeared once more, standing beside the sleigh. This time, his expression was peaceful, a soft smile gracing his features. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice filled with gratitude. "I can finally rest." With those words, the apparition began to fade, blending seamlessly with the morning light. The sleigh continued its journey, the Whitakers feeling a profound sense of fulfillment and peace. Back in Silverpine, the Whitakers were greeted with warm smiles and heartfelt congratulations from the villagers. The successful completion of the forgotten sleigh had not only brought closure to James, but had also strengthened the community's bond. James felt a weight lift off his shoulders, knowing that his brother's spirit had found peace. Rebecca and Ethan, too, felt a renewed sense of hope and belonging in their new home. The Whitakers embraced the rest of their stay in Silverpine, participating in the village's joyful celebrations and creating new traditions of their own. The enchanted forest, once a place of fear and mystery, now symbolized resilience and the enduring power of family and community. Years later, the story of the Whitaker family's Christmas in Silverpine became a cherished part of the village's lore. The forgotten sleigh was restored to its place of honor in the town square, serving as a reminder of the importance of remembering the past while embracing the future. Silverpine continued to welcome visitors each winter, its traditions enriched by the Whitakers' tale of love, loss, and the unbreakable bonds that transcend even death. The village stood as a beacon of hope, where the true spirit of Christmas lived on in every heart and every snowflake that fell from the sky.